Good morning. I'm Stephen Toop, and I have the pleasure of serving as President and Vice Chancellor of UBC. Every year at Congregation, UBC has the honor of bestowing honorary degrees upon individuals who, in the opinion of the university community, have fit the criteria of excellence and eminence in their chosen field. Leon Bibb is one of those individuals, and I invite him now to step forward to receive his honorary degree. Madam Chancellor, British Columbia has an important musical and cultural treasure in the person of Leon Bibb. A distinguished actor, folk singer, and advocate for minority rights, Mr. Bibb began his career with a generation of performers who were at the forefront of social change. Born in Louisville, Kentucky, he pursued classical training as a baritone in New York. He made his first major theater appearance in the original 1946 Broadway production of Annie Get Your Gun, starring Ethel Merman. Bibb turned to folk music and was heard along with such luminaries as Pete Seeger on the 1954 album Hootenanny Tonight. He performed in the inaugural Newport Folk Festival, the Broadway production of Kurt Weill's Lost in the Stars, and he also appeared as a member of the Skifflers in tandem with folk music legend Milt Oakham. In 1971, he moved to Vancouver. His contribution to the BC arts community has been fundamental. He helped establish the success of the Vancouver Arts Club Theatre when he obtained the rights to Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris. Among his many other career highlights, One More Stop on the Freedom Train was a gospel musical about the Underground Railroad, premiered in Toronto and mounted in Vancouver at Expo 86. In 1992, Mr. Bibb founded A Step Ahead, a program that provides youth with a forum to discuss diversity, racism, bullying, and multiculturalism. This program has been performed in more than 120 schools across Canada. He's an inductee into the BC Entertainment Hall of Fame, a Queen Elizabeth II Golden Jubilee Medal recipient, and in 2009 was appointed to the Order of British Columbia. Madam Chancellor, for sharing his extraordinary talent and inspiration, I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa, upon Leon Bibb.
By authority of the Senate of this university, I confer upon you, Leon Bibb, the title and degree Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
now gives me great pleasure to ask Dr. Bibb to say a few words.
Thank you, Chancellor Sherry Morgan, Sylvester, President, Vice Chancellor Stephen Troop, colleagues, and students. The day is one of the most significant days in my entire life. And I thought I would write a speech and read it. And I kept giving it some thought, and I thought then, no, I would like to tell a little bit of a story. And the story starts with a song. It's a very old song. It's a Negro spiritual. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long ways from home, a long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long ways from home. A long, long ways from home. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, in the United States. At the time I grew up, Louisville was a racist and segregated city. I attended school from kindergarten through high school and a year and a half in a small college in Louisville. Throughout that whole period, I never had a conversation with a white person. Never. The man on the corner grocer and his wife I spoke to as, "Yes, sir," "Yes, ma'am." I left Louisville, and for the first time, I held an eye-to-eye, person-to-person conversation with a white person. All of those years, I didn't go to school with a white student. I didn't have the opportunity to learn what another culture could teach me. At the same time, I was learning math and Latin, of all things. I didn't know when I was going to use Latin. But that was my schooling in Louisville, Kentucky. It's changed now. Louisville, like a lot of other cities, have advanced to a point where there is this major attempt to create equality. With all of this, and when I hesitated a minute, since I'm not doing a speech, I had to decide whether I was going to include what I was about to say. I've decided that I'm going to say it. I lived in a very small community And there were many such communities in Louisville where colored folks lived. That was the term used to describe blacks or Afro-Americans or whatever you would want to call them. We had our own little community. We had doctors and lawyers, a newspaper, a barbershop, all of the things that a small community would require to sustain itself. We had in our community in Louisville, Kentucky, and there were many such communities like that. For instance, I would, if I was walking home from school and I was teasing a little girl, Mrs. Jones or Smith or whomever would come out on the front porch and say, "Sonny, Bibb, if you don't stop teasing that girl, I'm going to call your mother." She called my mother. My mother told my father, and you guessed it, I was punished. My father had this marvelous way of looking at you. You would keep your head bowed because you knew he was looking at you in this fashion, and you wouldn't look up because you didn't want to stare him in the eyes. So you'd keep your head down, and finally you knew you couldn't wait any longer. So you would look at him, and he would look straight at you like this, and he'd say, "Sonny, go upstairs." And I didn't eat dinner that day. Now, we wouldn't do that today, would we? But that's what happened then. I had, as I've just said, great teachers in this, what I call now, after having learned about other schools, an impoverished school. But I did have marvelous teachers. I fell in love when I was 14. No, seriously, I did. I went to church one Sunday with my father, one Sunday with my mother, and at my father's church, my Latin teacher, Miss Black, attended. And, well, that started it. I would watch her after church. We would congregate out, and people would be talking to each other, and I'd be standing off on the side saying to myself, "Do you dare go over and say anything to Miss Black?" And I decided no. When I graduated from Central Colored High School, there's that word again, I was the last person in the schoolroom to leave. She was doing exams, head down, and I kept seated in the back, and then finally I got up and I walked to the front seat, and I sat down, and I waited a long time, trying not to make a sound, but she kept looking down, marking papers, so I decided I'd have to do something. So I rattled some papers, and she looked up, and she said, "Sonny?" No, she didn't call me Sonny. "Leon?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I stood in the aisle, straight up, and I said, "Miss Black, I love you," and ran out of the classroom. Ran. I was too embarrassed to see her the next Sunday, but in time, I did see her. Because, as I mentioned, we lived in a community that was pretty much ringed around by the white world. I saw colored toilet signs. I saw colored fountain signs. As soon as I moved out of that circle, I felt the segregation, the racism. But as I've said before, the community sustained me. My teachers, my parents, they sustained me throughout all of this. I'm looking down at faces that are faces of hope, faces of dreams. As you well know, we are living in a world, globally. We are living in a staggering society. To suggest it is your role to support, because you are that generation, whatever that means. We all need to struggle, but we have your help. Your new help, your new energy is going to fuel this continued struggle. I I was talking to my niece, and it got around to the point where we were saying one drop in the ocean doesn't amount to anything, and that was my position. It wasn't hers. And she looked at me and she said, Uncle Sonny, that's what she calls me, Uncle Sonny, every drop counts. And I don't know how many of you are graduating. I didn't ask how many yet. But all of us, we all owe it to ourselves, one, to the world, second. We all owe it our support and our ability to say no when we need to say no, but most importantly, say yes when we need to say yes. Communities represent love, friendship. They are very important elements in our lives. We have become, over time, not used to doing those things as much as we used to. Face-to-face contact, face-to-face conversation. That's an expression of love. And we have to revisit that. We have to revisit it. How many drops in a vast ocean? Notwithstanding, we all have to drop our little drop in the big, big ocean. I've stood on this stage before with my son and I've sung. To think that I'm going to leave you without doing that would be, well, it wouldn't be possible for me to do that. What I'd like to do first, however, is a very familiar song. You all will know it. Everybody on the stage will know it. We all know the song. If you don't know it, hum it, because it's a very simple song. But I'd like to sing the first verse, and I'd like to sing it to the graduates as my tribute to you. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We'll repeat that verse. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around the world, we're gonna let it shine. All around the world, we're gonna let it shine. All around the world, we're gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you.